Yeah, so bottom up is where we're starting with our carbon atoms and kind of building our graphene sheet an atom at a time or a bond at a time, whereas top down we're starting with our graphite, which already has those fully formed graphene sheets. They're just stacked on top of one another, and we're exfoliating them from the top graphite down to the graphene sheets. So I think that there's, as Brad's presentation really showed, there's different types of graphene, and there's a lot of space and application that depends on what the application is, what the best graphene material will be. At the end of the day, graphene is a 1 atom thick carbon nanomaterial, but when you start stacking those sheets or you have different size sheets, you get some changes in property, and some of those properties can be better for different applications. And it also depends what scale you need the material at, right? If you need tons per day, for example, like you're using it in cement or asphalt or Ford Motor Company, you need a large volume. Then that's going to kind of dictate what type of graphene you can use. So I think there's definitely room in the space for many different methods to make graphene, and there's some really great work on both sides, right? We have universal matter and
Here's a big difference. I mean, your universal matter has a few big factories planned around the world. They'll make the graphene and then got to transport it to the point of use. Brad's Avadain has a different concept, which is making the graphene at the point of use. Explain that and the virtues of making it at the point of use.
Absolutely, and I agree with Kevin, by the way. We don't see ourselves as in any way competitive with universal matter. We serve different market niches, and it's a huge market opportunity. So there's plenty of room.
The biggest market opportunity in the world.
Absolutely. So one of the problems with graphene is that it wants to be graphite, meaning it wants to restack itself, okay? And this has
Van der Waals forces.
Absolutely, the Van der Waals forces draw it together. And so right from the very beginning, we designed our production method to be modular and distributed so that we could have 2 metric ton production lines near the end user. That way we can produce dry flakes that are high quality that can go into the production process at the end user so that they can then benefit fully from the size, thinness, defect-free quality without having to deal with the problem of restacking. And there are actually competitors probably more to universal matter than Avadain, but I'll leave that to Kevin to decide. In Australia, the Australian government's been trying to attract them to manufacture graphene at graphite mines. Now, this is a metaphor, and some mathematician or physicist is going to argue with my calculation. But think of a chunk of 3 kilograms of graphite, and you exfoliate it using our method. That would fill a 40-foot shipping container, but it would still weigh 3 kilograms. And so, to us, it made no sense whatsoever to co-locate the graphene production near the graphite mine. That's the easiest thing in the world to ship is graphite. And you don't need a lot of it to make a lot of graphene. And so that George, is our model, which is put it near where the end users are, have them widely distributed, avoid supply chain interruptions, and produce very, very high quality.
And moving graphene jeopardizes its properties. I mean, it has to be very carefully.
Should we see if there's anybody who wants to ask a question?
Yeah, we have just under 10 minutes, and I suspect there might be some questions, so we'll take them from the audience.
Hello, Greg Ryman, and I am sold on your vision of graphene, as I'm sure everyone else in this room is. My question for Ariel, how and when will individual investors like myself be able to invest in universal matter, and I encourage you to do a Reg D filing.
Well, I am a co-founder of the company, but definitely not the decision maker right now. So I will approach our CFO and CEO and ask what we can do. I know that they're doing a private, large institutional and equity and family office round right now. As I said, I think it's $50 to $60 million coming, and the company didn't decide yet on the exit strategy, if it's going to be sold or going public. So I guess that if the company will decide to go public, then everybody can invest. But I don't have any other intelligent answer to you right now, and I'm sorry about that.
Let's take a final word from each of the panelists, maybe, since there are no other questions.
Yeah, I think graphene is really having its moment, just like aluminum did when it really, once we realized how to make this new material, aluminum, we completely changed it from this precious metal into something that has use and application in really everything. And there's so many different end uses for aluminum. I think it's a really good analogy to graphene and the different capabilities that graphene has. It's, and people ask me, oh, when will graphene deliver on the hype, right? They've seen maybe some research papers and they're sold on it. Oh, when will it deliver on the hype? And I like to remind people that it's only been less than 20 years. If you look at the development of solar panels, for example, over 20 years. When we had our first solar panels, or the same with lithium-ion batteries, or even when we discover new drugs, it takes years and decades to go from that first discovery to changing the world. So some people have said, oh, graphene busted, it's all hype. And I don't think that it's even started to really approach that exponential growth. So that's my perspective.
Oh, I agree with that, Kevin. I'm looking forward to graphene being a ubiquitous material by the year 2030. Today, virtually no one's heard of it. Ariel said maybe 1% of the people, not even that, not even 1% of 1%. But by 2030, everyone is going to be talking about graphene because it's going to impact virtually every person's life every day. Think about this. If concrete were a country, it would be the third largest CO2 emitter in the world. And by adding a certain amount of graphene, about 1% by volume, typically, you can increase the tensile strength of graphene. It will make the concrete impermeable to water, and it will last longer. So not only do we use 30% or a third less concrete to accomplish even better materials in better buildings, better structures, better roads, but it will last longer. Water filtration. Water is the oil of this century. Water is in scarcity, and it's becoming more so. Graphene can filter seawater into fresh drinking water. Talk about renewable energy. We're working now using graphene in solar cells to achieve a higher than 50% electricity light to electricity conversion efficiency. These are just some of the mega uses that George has written about for graphene, and I think it gives us all a brighter, cleaner, and more prosperous future.
And I think it's exciting. It's already transforming science, which is the test of technology, just as the test of science is technology. And it's your paper, Kevin, says that there are today, for the last 17 years, there have been 40 peer-reviewed papers a day citing graphene. That's 17 years of 40 peer-reviewed papers a day. It's spreading through all the science departments of the world and focusing on new ways of simpler physics, 2D physics, rather than building up to 10 and 11 dimensions, or on silicon chips producing 3D, 4D kinds of devices. We have now 2D devices with edge modes that conduct 1,000 times faster than copper and use 10 times less heat and energy. I mean, it's just all of electronics will change. It's what's happening, and it's what I hope you folks go out and we all got to figure out how to invest and propel this industry forward in the future. Thank you.
If, before, I'm going to turn it over to Ariel since he's up the latest. He gets the last word.
So we have a saying here that when the smart people speak, the others should be silent. So I will be silent because I agree 100% with my colleagues here with everything they said. I think graphene is the future. I think that the applications are the future. We are, for the question that I was asked before, we are raising capital right now on Eurocodes and the spinal cord revolution. And if anyone interested, I'm sure that through the panel, through George or his team, you can approach me, although we are 90% done over there. I do urge you all to research more about graphene, read more, learn more. As mentioned, in 6-7 years, it will be the world. And I know it's 11 p.m. here, so definitely I'm going to dream at night very soon on graphene, graphene, and graphene. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you.
Okay, let's hear it for our panel.